All right, so let's see here. So the first step was for this exercise was to create a new architectural template. I think we're all pretty comfortable with that process. So let me just really quickly, new project. We're gonna go ahead and change that to an architectural template, and we will hit OK. Okay, so our first step was to add, I think, a couple levels. We're gonna keep it pretty simple. We have level 1 and level 2. Level 1 being 0, 0, and level 2 being 12 feet. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my to create the levels. What view are we gonna want to go to? Elevations. Yep, any elevation will work just fine. So as a part of the architectural template, it works out pretty easy that we already pretty much have the levels where we want to. The quickest route would just be to simply change this to 12 feet. All right, so we can go 12 feet, and now we have what we're looking for. If you didn't have this, let's just go through really quickly on how we could also add that. We could go up to architecture, and then under datum, you could go to level. And a couple different ways you could add the level. You could simply just draw it in at the particular height that you want. I like to use the pick lines tool. I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably started using this quite a bit too. So pick lines works just like offset. I'm gonna go ahead and just say 12 feet. And then I could hover my cursor over, and you can see that line at 12 feet. Okay, you'll notice that it's called it level 3. It's called it level 3 because it already had level 2 before, but you can always change that. So you likely don't need to go this route because you would have taken the first route that we took, but that's just another way we could do that. Okay, so the next step is to create our wall type. All right, so we have a 6-inch wood stud, 5/8 gypboard on the interior. We're gonna go ahead and make that color gray. And then we're going to add a material of our choice on the exterior. Okay, so I am going to go to my level 1 floor plan, to which I will go to my wall. I'm going to go ahead and create a new wall, and if I'm going to create a new wall, what's the best wall? What wall do we think is the best wall to start out with for a 6-inch wood stud?
6 inch.
Yeah, let's just start with a generic 6-inch. That's usually the best bet. Okay. So we'll click on generic 6-inch. We're going to go to edit type, and then what are we going to press to? Yeah, duplicate, exactly, because we don't want to edit the original. So we'll click on duplicate, and for this assignment we can just call this wall type 1. 12. Okay, so from there we're going to go over to structure. We're going to click on edit structure. We already have a 6-inch wood stud. If you want to add a material, you can do that. If you want to add like a wood lumber, that's okay. So we're going to insert a material and add gypboard down to our interior side. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and change the material to gypsum wallboard. So type in GY, and it probably should pop up. Okay, we'll go ahead and hit OK. Let's actually make that gray. I think by default it's probably gray. I don't think it's actually white, but if we wanted to make this, we'll just say any color. What is, for gypsum wallboard, what has been the best approach to change the color of that gypboard?
Tint.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and add a tint. So we are going to leave it white. We're going to leave the actual main product white, and then we're going to go over to tint, and then we could change it to whatever color gray we want. Okay? So we'll go ahead and hit OK, and that will be our gypsum wallboard. Now, if we wanted to make another color, what would be the approach that we want? Actually, I kind of just did something that I usually don't like to do, and that's to edit the original material inside Revit. I like to leave all the basic Revit materials as is. So if I wanted to say, let's say we wanted to make another gypsum wallboard and we want it to be red, what process would we do to do that? Yeah, so we're going to right click on this. We're going to click on duplicate. So we now have a duplicate material, and maybe we call this red. And what would be the next step that we want to take to make sure that it changes to red, but it doesn't change our other one?
Go there to deselect this.
Duplicate this asset. That's right. Yep. So we are probably all pretty familiar with that for now. So we're going to click on duplicate this asset. Now I can go down to my tint, and I could change it to whatever color I want, and it won't affect my original. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select my gray material. I'll hit OK, and now we have our gypsum wallboard. We're going to change the function of this to a finish. All right, let's add a thickness, 5/8 of an inch, and that's good. And let's insert another material. We're going to go up. We'll add that to the outermost layer of our exterior side. We're going to go ahead and make that plywood. So type in PLY, plywood sheathing. Okay, we'll make this a substrate. We'll give this a thickness of a 1/2 inch. Okay, and now we're going to add a material of our choice. I'm just going to go ahead and add another one right here. I'll make that a finish because the finish is our outermost layer, right? So typically that will always be the case. We'll add another thickness of this. Not super critical what that is for this moment. And let's pick a material. You guys may have created your own. If you did, great. I'm just going to keep it simple. I'll just pick the brick that's by default already in the system. Okay, brick common, that works. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. All right, any questions about setting up wall types? That pretty clear? Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit OK. And we're going to hit OK again. And now we have our wall type that we can use to create the boundary of our wall. Okay, so if I go back to step 2, actually we're on step 3, that's going to be building the wall. I say to create a rectilinear shape 15 by 40, okay? As I mentioned a couple classes ago, there's not necessarily a correct answer to this, but I like to work on outside face of stud so that I know that I think a lot of contractors or framing contractors like that so that it's easy to measure, but some like wall or center of stud, some like inside face of stud. So ultimately that's up to you on how you do that. But I'm going to make a rectangle 15 by 40. Okay. So just curious, why do you think we wouldn't use exterior face of finish? Any ideas? You probably won't know this answer unless you work in construction. But the reason why we actually don't do outside face of finish is if you give a contractor outside face of finish dimensions, I guarantee you're not going to have a wall that's built the dimension that you want, because it just starts to add a mathematical component to it, to where they have to start to think about what the thickness is, and then they figure out what the actual dimension of the stud is, and it adds a whole extra component that it's not always the best to do. So it's better for you to do that math yourself. Yes?
Do any work for the state of California, they will require it to be outside face of finish clearances between buildings.
So, and that's another good point. Sometimes people will require it, and as a designer, it actually kind of makes sense to do outside face of finish because you want to ultimately know what your overall constraints are. So you might, sometimes I actually do design to outside face of finish, but I might actually dimension to the stud. So that you know as an architect what it is that you're building and how big the building actually will be. Is it 15 feet? Well, when you add those finishes on, it might be 15.5 feet. It might be 16 feet. So it is important to actually know both, but just be aware of what it is that you are picking. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our 15 by 40 inch box. What I'm going to do is go up to architecture. I'm going to go to wall. I think we were already there. And I'm going to change my location line to finish face exterior. Now you could simply click on the line and you could draw it wall by wall. So you could go 40, 15, 40, and 15. And that will give you outside face of stud dimensions that we're looking for. Another quick way that you could do it, when you click on wall, notice that you have other different types of draw tools. Okay, you could click on the rectangle. Some of you guys may have done that. Okay, so you could click on rectangle, and because we're already on finish face exterior, the dimensions that you see on the screen are all to the outside face of the stud. Okay, so I could simply just drag it out, go to 40 and 15, and that would give us the same thing as well. Okay, so whatever approach you take is fine, but ultimately you want to start to refine your skills so that you could be more productive and start to ultimately do things a little faster. Yes.
When you got the rectangle, is there a way to enter the dimension?
You could. Good question. I think you can actually enter dimension by dimension. Let's just go ahead and try it. So let's see. If I start and I say 40, oh, maybe you can't. No, okay, I don't think you can actually. Let me look into that and I'll come back to you. Okay, I usually just eyeball that particular piece, but let's see. So we got good. Let's make our wall constraints, make sure that we go up from level 1 to level 2, and that should be good. Let's go ahead and do 40 by 15. Come on now. There we go. Okay, and that looks good. So if I look at what I have now, I have my little building. It's in between all of my elevation tags, so that's good. I know if I click on my elevations, I'll be able to see what it is that I'm working on. Okay, if I would have placed it out here, you would have had to move all your elevation tags, and you're just adding extra steps to your work. Okay, so next step is, now that we have our walls, we're going to go ahead and download all of our objects. Okay, so you guys have gone to bimobject.com. I'm not going to go through that whole process, but let's go to bimobject.com. bimobject.com. Okay, so you guys probably created an account. You guys went to browse BIM objects. Okay, you guys found those objects, and then you will have noticed that when you found the one that you wanted, let's click on one of these. Once you find the one that you want, you go to download, and you'll have a variety of different program types that you can download. So this works really well, not just for Revit, but for AutoCAD. So if I'm doing, for example, I'm doing an apartment complex with my father-in-law right now, where I'm doing an 18-unit apartment complex, you might want to find toilets, sinks, you might do a variety of different things. You can find those here too. So what's nice about that is when you're doing your design, you can actually design with the actual product that you're going to put inside your building. So there actually are codes to how big sinks are, how big ovens are, ranges, what you actually have to have. So you might as well design with the actual product versus just a generic block that just shows a generic sink. Why not put the actual sink that you're going to put in your project? So
Looks better too.
yeah, it looks better. It looks, the overall floor plan will end up looking a lot nicer. So you can download AutoCAD files and PDFs if you need specs to your products, all in this location. Okay, so as soon as you download it, you'll go ahead and find the Revit file. You'll click on download. I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to sign in right now, but you'll go ahead and open that up, and I already have them all saved, so I'll open them up that way. Okay, so we'll say the first one is, let's do this one right here. So as soon as you download it into your downloads, you can double click on it. You'll get this little message here. Everyone probably got that. You're going to click on upgrade. Take probably about 10-15 seconds to upgrade, and it'll go ahead and open it up into Revit. So as soon as you do that, what that's doing is it's opening up it into the family editor. Okay, so if you actually wanted to make physical changes to this family, you could do it at this particular time. Okay, and we'll actually have a lecture later on down in the semester on how to actually go through and start to create your own families. Okay, and we'll actually learn how to create parametric families too, so that you can edit them on the live when you're within your model. Okay, so as soon as you open it up in the family editor, you're likely not going to need to make any edits to that. Okay, it's already parametric, it's already well designed. Okay, so from there we're going to click on load into project. I can then click on the project that I want to load it into. Okay, so I'll click on OK, and then from there it will automatically load it into the respective category. Okay, so right now, because I loaded a door into the project, it realizes that I probably want to place a door into my building. So from there I can go ahead and just place it anywhere I'd like. But if by chance it doesn't do that, all you got to do is go to the category that you loaded. So I can go to door, and over here you'll notice that I now have that new door loaded into my various different door types. Okay, so I won't go into every one of those objects, but just keep in mind, if you load a door, it goes into the door types. If you load a window, it's going to go into the window types. Objects like the canopy that maybe are not a door or a window. So it might be a canopy, it might be a desk, it might be a computer. It could be anything other than basically doors or windows. You can find those objects here under component, and then you click on place component, and you'll have all of your other different 3D object families that you may have loaded into your project. Okay, so that's where you would find those. Yes.
Can you also do it through insert and then load family? That's the way I'm doing
Yes, you could go over to component. Great point. So you could go to component, you could go to place component, you could go to edit type, and then you could also go to load. And then from there you can go find the file that you downloaded. So that would also work.
Will
So
that add it to the family?
yes.
Selected family?
Yep, it will. So if I go to, I have them all saved to my thumb drive. So if I go here, I'm going to go to Revit, week 4, products. And for example, let's do the,
Sunshine.
yeah, let's do the sunshade. So we'll go to open and it will load it. And here it
You can
is.
still edit color and whatever.
Yep. So now you can see I have that sunshade open. I can change the finish. Right now it's just a standardized aluminum sunshade. But if I wanted to make it red, yellow, I could go do it through that our
You
traditional.
can change the color in the material itself. Or
Right here.
in the-
Yes.
Okay.
All right. If you want multiple, let's say you want multiple sunshades in your model. Let's say you want an aluminum and you want also a red one. So if you wanted to create a red sunshade, what would be the process that you take to get that?
Duplicate it.
Yeah, we're going to duplicate it and then create another one. Maybe we call it 30-inch circular red. Exactly. Then you could change that and it won't affect the aluminum one that you already have in your model. Okay? So go ahead and hit OK. I'm actually going to just go back to my other model. We'll just pretend that we've loaded them all in. Nope. So bada bing, bada boom. We have all of our products already in there. Okay. I think the last one that maybe you guys, the last one that's actually not on the list is actually to add the fixed window. Okay. So what I did was I simply created the fixed window. So I went up to window. And then you'll notice by default that the fixed window type is already preloaded into your Revit family, so that's kind of nice. But let's make one that's 24 by 24 is already a window. But if I load it into my project, I'm going to make, I think it said to make, let's see, let's go down. We have fixed window, and I have 3 sections of those, okay? So it says wall 4, still height of 6 feet. Okay, so but what I did was make 6 sections of that. So I'm going to go ahead and look at this in pure elevation. What I did was I simply just copied this from edge to edge. Okay, you could also go, let me just reverse that real quick. You could also click on copy, click on multiple. Remember, if you click on multiple, you can copy multiple at a time without having to go copy, 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 right? So from there, I could go boom, boom, make it nice and easy. Okay, from there, I could select all 3 and copy them all up. Okay, so that all took a matter of 10 seconds. All right, so there we have a nice 6 window component. Okay, these are nice residential windows. So depending on the look that you're going for, whether it be storefront or residential windows, that might be how you do that. Okay, any questions about any of those, any of that process?
What was sunshade? Is there any specific dimension for that? Because
No, I just, me as a designer, I was like, okay, it probably came in maybe half that size, but if you wanted to make it larger, you could click on edit type, and right here, length 2.6 by 2.6. So from there, you could change that length and make it whatever you want.
Is it one object or 2 and you
This
assemble
is
that?
actually one object. Let's see.
Because I couldn't find.
Yeah, it's obviously not 2.6 wide. Blade distance 4.5 inches. Did I group it? No, I don't think so.
Because
New
I
family.
just found.
Let's see what
small
happens
one.
if I go to, let's see, edit type. Let's see what
Could
happens.
be 2.6 deep.
Oh, 2.6. I think they're 2.6 each component.
Each one.
Oh, 2.6 deep is what you're thinking it is? Let's see what
Yeah.
happens if I just make it 5 feet. Oh, it doesn't like that. It actually did not change it. How did I make that? Good question. I loaded it into my project. Let's, how did I get that? Did that last semester, so let's see. Let's delete it. Let's reload it into our project.
It had a dimension width of 8 feet.
Oh, did it?
Where did you see that?
Where did you see that? Was it right here? Oh, right here. Okay, so this is actually what we call so if you go to edit type, these are all type parameters. So for this particular sunshade, it's a type of parameter that you can actually edit without editing all of them. So it's a specific type parameter, okay? So I can go through and I could make this 12 feet and I could type that in right here. Where'd it go? Oh, okay. So I could type in 12 feet. It'll change the width of this sunshade, and it won't change all of them. Okay. All of these parameters that you see before going into edit type, these are all specific type parameters. Okay, so that you can make any of these changes, you can make any of these adjustments, and it won't affect all of the other sunshades that you might have in your project. Okay, so it's not until you go into edit type that you start to affect the specific parameters for that sunshade. Okay.
So it will come with one section of the sunshade, and you can.
So it actually, what I think what this is, the 2'6", that's actually the dimension, I think, of this, as my guess is, of the sections. Okay.
One section.
Yep. So it's probably that dimension right there,
Yeah.
2'6".
Yeah.
I think that was 4 feet.
Is it 4 feet?
Yeah, click on it. See where it says
Oh,
4 feet?
mullion distance.
So that's where each
Yep.
break is 4 feet.
You're right.
apart.
I think the 2'6" is how much it's actually overhanging.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
How far it's coming off.
Yep. So every component's a little bit different. Sometimes you just have to kind of study them a little bit and see how they created it. So depending on who created it, how they created it could vary from component to component. Okay. So the last step of this exercise was to create a sheet. So a lot of you guys created, or everyone should have created a title block last class.
So, yeah.
Yes.
How you can center the sunshade above the door?
So what I would do if you wanted to center it above the door, I would, let's see, there's a couple ways you could do it. I think if you were in 3D view, I don't think it will lock into place. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll go to the elevation. So let's find that elevation. Of course, it's going to be the very last one I try. What I'll do if I want to center that sunshade over the door is I might draw a detail line. Okay, so I'll take a detail line. Remember that you can't draw detail lines in 3D views. Okay, so you have to be in an elevation. Okay, and then from here you'll notice that as I draw that detail line, it actually does snap to the center of the door. So I could just draw that line, and then from there I can go to move, and I can grab the midpoint of the canopy. There it is right there, and I could slide it over and snap it to my detail line. Okay, so that's how you might approach centering it onto that door. All right. So the last part of this was to create or place all of those objects onto a sheet. So if I go over to my sheet, I've already created that. Let's double click on that. Okay. So you guys probably have loaded your title block onto your page. Let me see if I have a title block already created. I do. So let me. I'm going to go ahead and double click on my title block that I created last class. Okay, from there I can go to load into project, and it's now loaded into my exercise. And you can do that for whatever you're working on. Okay, so you could do this for every critical thinking exercise if you want. Now if I go over to my sheet, I could click on that title block, the default title block, and I can go through and I can click on the one that says DVC, and that's the one that I created. Okay, so let me just delete all of these views. From there, you can start to drag and drop all of your views onto your sheets. Okay, like so. Drag them all on, and you'll have them on your sheet. Let's look at them a little bit more realistic of a scenario. My guess is when you drag that onto your sheet, you're probably going to have something that looks like this. Let me just kind of, usually the crop regions are all crazy every time you loaded it in. So you might have something that looks like this. You load it into your project, crop regions are all scattered. Okay, so what you might have is something that looks like this. Okay, so let me delete that. I'm going to drag it back onto my project. That's not as I'm hoping. I'm trying to create a bad situation so that I can show you guys how to fix it. Let's see. Let's create a new elevation. Okay, so let's go to level 1. I'm going to go over to view. I'm going to click on elevation, and I'm going to create a new elevation real quick. Okay, and actually a little bit later today I'm going to go through all the different view types. Okay, but I'm going to create a new elevation, and then from there, let's double click on that. Okay, good. This is exactly what I want. So here's my new elevation that I just created, elevation 1A. Let's pretend that's one of the elevations that we already had on our project. So I'm going to drag that onto our sheet, and you're going to notice that it's not the cleanest elevation. There's a few things that we need to do to kind of clean this up to make it presentation ready. Okay, one, it's not in realistic view. Our crop regions are all, they're kind of expanded and kind of wide. This is actually a pretty good, a lot of times they could be 10 times that big, and it really needs some cleaning it up to make it look nice. Okay, so what I might do is I'm going to double click on my view. The first thing that I usually always do for an elevation is I adjust my crop regions, okay? I like to make them as close and as tight as possible so that I only see what it is that I want to see in my project, okay? So right now, if they're not turned on, you could go over and click on the Hide Crop Region button. You might turn it back on. And then from there, for my elevations, you're always going to want to bring the crop region to the base of the building. You never want to see what's below, okay, for an elevation. If it's a section, you probably want to see the foundation and the footings and all that good stuff. But for an elevation, always crop it right up to the base of the building. Okay, so I can make this a little bit lower. Maybe we give the edges a little bit more room. Okay, and then from there, I can turn off my crop region. You never want to see that box around your view. Okay, if your elevation tags are, if they're way out here, a lot of times you might drag that elevation on, and they might be, they might look something kind of like this. That's another thing that you're going to want to clean up. Okay, so you can simply click on your level lines. You can drag them nice and close. Okay, so that they are nice and kind of intimate with inside the building. Okay, and I'd say that looks pretty good for now. Okay, and then lastly, I can go over. I can turn on realistic, so I can see all my materials. You might also want to turn on your shadows. Okay, if you turn on your shadows, you'll get a little bit more life to your elevation. Okay, you can start to see where the sun is, kind of how it's affecting what it is that you're working on. Okay, you don't see much shadows right now just because we don't really have too much depth for this particular building, but you'll definitely see them for our residents. Okay, so any questions about that on dragging your views onto your sheets? Okay. So right now you're probably hiding it, okay? So you might make sure your project browser is not hiding those different buttons. You also probably won't see them unless you're in the view, okay? So if you're not in the view, you're not going to see those buttons. If you go through and double click on your view, you've now activated the view. So I could actually make edits to my model once you double click on it, okay? So it's a little small for so if I click on now deactivate view, I can now go back into if you use AutoCAD, it's kind of like paper space. You're now back in paper space. So I can change the scale maybe we make these 1/4, just so that they're a little bit more legible. Okay, and then from there I can adjust my tag. Okay, so I might make the tag a little bit bigger. Okay, and you might name it. Maybe we call this I'll call this south elevation. And that'll be about it. Okay, so as soon as you place all of your elevations onto a sheet, you can then plot it. Let's go through that process one more time, and then we'll move on to our next task. Okay, any questions about setting up sheets, loading title blocks into your project? Does that make good sense for everybody? Good, okay. So let's look at how to plot this one more time. So this is a good demonstration on how to plot correctly to a sheet, not necessarily just plotting a view. So as soon as you have your elevations on your sheet, I'm then going to go up to Revit. I'm going to go over to Print, and I'm going to click on Print again. Okay, from here, I like to use Adobe PDF. I understand some of these computers are having some struggles with using Adobe PDF. You might also use PDF Creator, okay? Well, we'll just kind of wing it here. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to go to PDF, okay? From here, I'm going to go to Current View. If I click on Current View, it will plot only the extents of what's on that sheet. If the sheets, or if your views extend off the edge of the sheet, it will crop it right at the edge of the sheet, I believe. Okay, so we're going to leave it on current view, and then from there I'm going to go to settings. I'm going to go to setup. What paper size do we like to use?
D.
24 by 32.
It's actually, it's ANSI D. Okay, that's 22 by 34. If you're doing 24 by 36, that would be ARC D. Okay, but there's probably about 25 different paper types. But we're going to click on ANSI D. Okay, that's our correct paper size. Orientation is going to be landscape. All right. Vector processing is good. This is all good. I'm going to go to zoom to 100%. That will make sure that it plots everything perfectly to scale. And I'm going to click on center. Okay, so those are all the settings that we're going to want for plotting a correct, properly plotted PDF. Okay, so from there I can go ahead and hit OK, and I can hit OK again, and go ahead and hit close. I'm going to go ahead and save this to my thumb drive. I already have it, so I'm not going to do that. Okay. Come on, PDF. God, it really struggles. So if it doesn't work, sometimes I just try doing it again. Hit the X, go to print. All of your settings should still be there. Sometimes just doing it a couple times will...
Adobe PDF doesn't work here, I don't think. You have to do PDF Creator.
Not going to work at all. Ah, come on. Oh, I got 8 bars. It's coming.
There you go.
Bingo. Second time is the charm. Okay, so and that's what you're going to turn into Canvas. Okay, questions?
Curiosity, how did you make them that much bigger than they are? Because on this sheet, they're teeny.
So if you actually make the view larger, here, I'll come talk to you about that in just a second. Ideally, you do want them kind of small. That's actually the typical size that you would put them on a sheet.
Yours looks pretty much the same, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're actually fine. I think it's a 1/4 inch text, but I'll come talk to you. If you really want to make them bigger, I'll come show you how to do that later. So this is what you'll turn into Canvas for the critical thinking exercise.